Alrighty then, Year 9. Let's go through the lesson plan for today's lesson. Year 9 Humanities, World War I History. So again, the date might be different depending on if you are 9G3 or 9B1. Lesson will still be the same though. So what we are looking at this lesson is developing our understanding of trench warfare in World War I and developing our note-taking skills. Success criteria is to identify and define the key characteristics in trench warfare by effectively summarizing information. Chapter 8.8. Lesson activities. What you'll be doing is reading through the class slides, slide 34 to 36, not too much. Completing these slide questions and activities. These lesson activities are to be completed in your digital notebook and will require access to Chapter 8.8 of your textbooks. If you have any questions, please let me know. Cool. So I'll go straight to the slides. And before I go any further, just a quick heads up that let's see, if I go to presenter mode, might be different depending on your device. I've actually attached, there it is, notes. No, that's not it at all. Okay. I've actually attached a couple of video links to this slide, but for some reason I've put them down here. So, for Chapter 8.8, before you move on to the actual activity, I recommend watching these videos here. A couple of videos on trench warfare in World War I, which is what Chapter 8.8 is about. So I recommend watching those quick 2-3 minute videos before you move on. But anyway, back to the slides. The difference between copying everything or nothing on a slide, textbook page, or website versus taking effective notes that summarize and highlight the important information in your own words is huge. The ability to effectively take notes will help you at school and in life. Recording notes in school, university, work meetings, sports training, etc., etc. Took notes in high school, took them in uni, I'm taking them now at work. I took notes, even at my part-time job, how to make a coffee. I learned by taking notes. So if you rewrite this information in your own words, you'll find it easier to remember. It's been scientifically proven. As a science teacher, improve your understanding and create study notes for your future self. Thank you, past self. That's one of the most valuable things about taking notes is, honestly, you're doing yourself a favor in the present because it'll be easier to understand as you're writing it out, that lesson. And then you're helping yourself out, creating less work for yourself in the future. So when I say study for this test, guys, it's not, crap, I have to read through this chapter and there's lots of information there and I can't really remember it. If you've taken the notes properly, you have already got the information there in your own words, in your own understanding, and it's much less work for you when you study for CATs or devs or what have you. Yeah. So what I'd like you guys to do this lesson, so this is all you're doing for this whole lesson, is Chapter 8.8. Read through the chapter. I'll show you what that looks like in a moment, and record 7 sentences, just 7 lucky sentences, that summarize the chapter information. So your digital notebook, you're going to be taking 7 sentences that summarize what Chapter 8.8 is all about. These sentences may include key statistics, definitions, different concepts, examples, etc., etc. of trench warfare. This is an important point. Be selective. Don't write as much as possible or the first 7 sentences in the chapter. Write what you believe is the most important thing to helping you understand the information. It'll be different for different students. Some students will need to understand this, but they already understand this, so they're going to write that down. Some people might look at that and they have their own way of remembering this, or they have their own little trick for it. You're writing 7 sentences that help you understand Chapter 8.8. It's very important to be selective. You have, when you get to university, when even in high school, you'll have some assessments where there is a word limit. In university, one of my biggest problems was they'd set a word limit of like 2,000 words for an essay. I'd be like, oh crap, that's a lot. And I'd go do my research, I'd do my little rough draft, I'd write it out, and I'd say, oh, brilliant. That's 4,000 words. And that was a crap essay. The first draft I did, that was twice the word limit. There's a reason they give you a word limit. It's because if you write down everything you know, it's just not going to be easy to understand. It's incomprehensible. I don't need the textbook. I've already got a copy of the textbook. I want you guys to write down a shortened version of Chapter 8.8. It's impressive if you guys can give me a lot of information. It's even more impressive if you can look at the information and decide, okay, that's the most important thing in this chapter. That's what I do when I make my slides. I go through, the last slide with the Western Front and the Eastern Front. I went through the chapter, I went through different websites, watched different videos, and I said, all right, I need to make that into one slide so they're not just falling asleep during these slides. Also, I'm sure some of you are. So it's important to write down what's most important, not just as much as you physically can. So chapter 8.8, you're recording 7 sentences about trench warfare. Once you've done that, you're completing questions 1 to 5 in chapter 8.8. Exercise 1, check your understanding. So I'll show you what that looks like. So in the last lesson, we looked at where the World War I was fought. This lesson, we're looking at how it was fought. And I mentioned it very briefly in the last lecture about this trench warfare stuff. So 8.8 looks at trench warfare, the modern artist's interpretation of typical trench systems. So you can see they've dug these big old holes into the ground, and the soldiers are just kind of hiding in the holes and popping their heads out. Pew, pew. And yeah, it's a good little diagram there that's labeled with the different dot points. A lot of information. I don't want all of that though. I just want 7 sentences. So you might find information there, you might find information here, you might find information, hell, even in these videos here that are more helpful to you understanding it than this. I'm not going to look at your notebook at the end of this lesson and say, you wrote the wrong 7 sentences. I just want you guys to write down what's most important to you. And you might find those 7 sentences when you're doing these first 5 questions here that I've set on the slide. Questions 1 to 5 in chapter 8.8. You might find that you've written down 7 sentences, and as you're doing these questions, the things you've written down in your 7 sentences in your digital notebook are just completely useless. You're like, oh crap, why did I write that down? That doesn't help me with these questions at all. So question 1 asks you to describe the features of the 3-line trench system and the purpose of each element. So if you look at the diagram up here, and if you read the text before and below it, you can see it's not just everyone chilling in one big hole. They've actually got 3 different lines. One of them's off camera, but 3 lines of trenches there. And there's a reason for that, and that's what you'll be telling me in question 1. Describe the features of the system and the purpose of each element. Question 2. Outline the experiences of the soldiers in relation to food and meals in the trenches. Obviously, a war is challenging, and obviously life in these little trenches is going to have a few issues for how much food they can have, where they can store it, how they will access it, how they will cook it. You can see number C there. That dude looks like he's cooking something up. Maybe if I read question C or point C there, the label, I can get some information for question 2. The challenges of soldiers in relation to food and meals in trenches. Question 3. Why did many soldiers choose to share their gear with a fellow soldier? You might want to think about how much space they have there. So basically what they're saying is, all right, they might have 10 soldiers in there, but between them they might have 5 helmets or something like that. So maybe think about why they would be sharing this information. Again, reading before and after this image here. Question 4, what was no man's land? I did actually think for this slide that I would include the clip from, I'm not sure if you guys have seen Wonder Woman, but there's a scene in Wonder Woman, the DC film, where it was set in World War I, and she charges across no man's land. So you can go look up that clip if you want. What was no man's land? Question 4. Question 5, last one. Suggest why the trench system was ultimately unsuccessful as a military tactic. I mentioned it in the last lesson, and it's one of the very first things they say at the top here. Stalemate. It was a defensive tactic that led to a stalemate. So trench warfare didn't lead to really any winners. It just meant that no one was losing. It was just like 2 people standing at the back of a room, firing things at each other. No one was really making any progress. No one was moving further across the map. No one was moving further across the room. And why was the trench system ultimately unsuccessful as a military tactic? That's question 5. And yeah, so a nice, easy, straightforward lesson for you there. Apologies if some of the information in the last video I made was a bit confusing with the, I guess the challenge there was that it was a double period, technically, worth of lessons. So the video was a bit longer, and there was some confusion as to what part of the video they were supposed to be stopping at, or how many questions they had to do for the double, or blah, 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 blah. So apologies for that. I'll try and fix that in the future. The only other thing I wanted to say was, I'll go over some of these questions. Instead of going over the questions every video, like the questions from the last lesson every video, I think that'd take up a bit much time. So what I'll probably do is do like a weekly review type thing. Like, okay, here's what we did in week 1. Here are a couple of questions that you guys completed, and I'll go over a couple of those answers, maybe using a few student responses. Just so you're not watching bloody 7 hours of my face every week. That'd be a terrifying prospect. The other thing I wanted to very quickly mention as well is your little student notebook that you guys have. Again, if you just click on that, you'll have your own little version of it, your own little copy, and you just take your little notes in it, just like you would a workbook. Since Google Classroom is a bit funny with it, I had to upload that as an assignment. You notice I haven't given it a due date because it's not something that you submit. It's just something that I use to check on your progress. So it's not going to be graded outstanding, excellent, very good. It's just me checking to see that you are alive and that you are doing work. So with that, it's important that when you play around with your student notebook, yours will look a bit different because this is the teacher copy, but you will have the option to submit it, to turn it in, to hand in your assignment. You can see someone's already done that. I've had this in my year 10s and my year 7s as well. Don't submit the notebook. It's just something that you work on for the rest of the term. If you submit it, it's hard for you to get access to it during the next lesson. So some people I've had a year 10 double today, and one of my mates, I'm not going to name and shame him, Kevin, went and submitted it in the first lesson, like super, and then he went to lesson 2, and he's like, Mr. Tepler, I can't open this, help, give me access, which I did, but just a heads up that you don't want to submit the notebook. That's just something you work on. And yeah, let me know if there's anything I can do to make your lives easier, guys, with these lessons, any information I need to go over, any other questions, any other features that I can work on. Again, work in progress for staff and students, so I'll try and fix up a few problems on my end, as long as you guys keep trying on your end. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. Best of luck with the lesson, guys. Cheers.